Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and today we're taking a look at what's happening to Paladin in Midnight. We're doing class by class, all these classes, playlist thing if you want to go see the other classes, trying to do one of these every day. But Paladin, we're going to start off with the class changes, and there's quite a bit happening here to the class tree. We've had some talents removed: Judgment of Light, Of Dusk and Dawn, and Seal of the Crusader. In addition, they've taken away Holy Prism. It's moved to they've taken it away from Holy and put it into the class tree as a choice node against Divine Toll, with a longer cooldown than it used to have when it was just in the Holy tree. And Quickened Invocation now reduces the cooldown of Divine Toll, Holy Prism, Barrier of Faith, or Holy Armaments by 15 seconds. That's just for Holy. Okay, so on the class tree, we have some new talents. We have Brought to Light, which makes it so that you heal stuff when you kill enemies that yield experience or honor. Fear No Evil. Fear duration on you reduced by 20%. This effect is increased to 60% during wings. I guess maybe this has some PvP ramifications, but mostly this is a nothing burger talent that you will take if and only if you want the stuff that's below it, which let's see where that thing is on the tree. It does have stuff below you, so I guess you could maybe... there's no way you're taking Blessing of Protection instead, and potentially Consecrated Ground instead of Fear No Evil for pretty much any PvE contexts. I would assume. Okay, then we have Holy Ritual being redesigned. No longer functions with freedom, no longer triggers when a blessing fades, but its healing is going up by 2,000%. So again, removing some of these more complicated interactions, buffs to track, timing to track, that kind of stuff. Vengeful Wrath has been redesigned. Hammer of Wrath deals additional damage based on its target health, and lower health targets receive more damage, so putting some of that execute functionality in for Hammer of Wrath. Which I think Hammer of Wrath is being redesigned a little bit. Let's see, Hammer of Wrath. Hammer of Wrath is being redesigned to, during wings, Judgment just turns into Hammer of Wrath. So this then kind of claws back some of that execute functionality that used to exist with baseline Hammer of Wrath. Blessing of Dusk has been redesigned, giving you damage reduction, increasing as your health decreases. Very powerful effect here, a 10% DR at low health, but across your entire health bar still, this is a large chunk of damage reduction for Paladin that is at its most valuable when you most need it, which is when you're low health, in situations where the entire raid is low health and you're kind of just barely trying to stay alive, then this is going to be getting a huge amount of value. Blessing of Dawn has been redesigned. When you're above 85% health, you take 5% of all damage taken by allies within 20 yards instead, up to a maximum of 5% of your health every 5 seconds. Definitely something that'll be nice for especially healing paladins with leech that helps them heal themselves. Healing paladins love leech. All healers love leech. And this now gives you a way to translate the fact that your health is high into some HPS for everybody else. Shield of Vengeance has been updated. It's a Retribution-only talent that makes Divine Protection have additional DR and cast the same Shield of Vengeance that used to be the button you pressed. It's no longer in the Ret talent tree, but it is a Retribution-only talent in the Paladin talent tree, which Paladin has been the class that has had the most of this. I would describe it as nonsense, where the class tree looks different from one spec to another. Understandable, like there's tuning reasons to do it. It just seems like the entire point of the class tree is that it's stuff that is for the class, right? And so it's weird that one of the tuning knobs that they've jumped to, they did this with some freedom talents for Holy as well, where it's like this tree just looks different for the different specs, does different things. And I personally think that like that, you're kind of breaking the core premise, not a promise, of the talent trees when you do that. But this does seem like a good way to keep the Shield of Vengeance effect there for Ret without having... This is, -1 keybind, -1 defensive button that you can press now. All Holy Power spenders are doing 20% more healing and damage, as a lot of the modifiers that increase their damage are going away. And a Just Reward and Obduracy are both now 2-point talents. So that's what's happening on the class side of things. Let's start with Ret, because I'm currently talented to Ret on the alpha, and I want to do one fewer talent swap during this video, saving the time that I am now wasting by explaining how I'm saving the time. So, in the developer's notes, as we head into Midnight, we're taking a close look at a couple things, such as how Ret generates Holy Power, the amount of spells needed to cast for setup, the hero talent balance, and the design of the third gate in the spec tree. Currently, we feel the choices in the third gate are too limiting, forcing players to pick between single target and AoE with little flexibility. To address this, we're redesigning some abilities while removing some others. The most impactful change is happening with Execution Sentence and Final Reckoning. In Midnight, we're combining these into one powerful ability that's useful in both AoE and single target situations, and actually I think very useful in funnel damage situations, where you're trying to deal single target damage while there are surrounding enemies. For Holy Power Generation, we're looking into the amount of passive dots. A key focus here is Crusading Strikes. While it's served Ret very well in some areas, over time it's become an invisible, passive Holy Power generator that's difficult to track and lacks meaningful interaction. We're shifting emphasis towards Templar Strikes. Another important change will be coming to Divine Resonance, with the aim of giving players more agency and clarity in their Holy Power generation. Going back to the amount of spellcasts, one change we would like to address is Divine Hammer. We know many enjoyed its interactions with the Templar hero talents, but on the other hand, many found it stressful to manage on top of abilities like Execution Sentence. In Midnight, with approachability in mind, we decided to find a different place for Divine Hammer inside the Templar hero tree as a key AoE component. This change will allow us to be more flexible with the tuning of Empyrean Hammers and Hammer of Light, and find a healthier balance between Herald of the Sun and Templar hero talent trees. We're also exploring ways to make Art of War and Righteous Cause feel more impactful and distinct, while shifting more power back into spenders like Final Verdict and Divine Storm to reinforce their importance in the rotation. All admirable goals, I think. All good stuff. The Divine Hammer one in particular, it was a really interesting effect in theory, but it was one of those that it felt kind of out of place to be in Ret, the way that Divine Hammer War Within Edition, especially early War Within Edition, worked of that spell. But it was a pretty fun minigame. It just kind of felt more like, one of the more complicated specs type effects rather than a Ret effect. I did quite like it though, so we'll see what the gameplay ends up looking like. I think the gameplay has changed quite a bit with even in the Hero Talent Tree version, but without further ado, let's take a look at the Apex talent. So the Apex talent for Ret is called Light Within. Art of War increases the damage of your next Blade of Justice by 150%. Avenging Wrath grants you Art of War. The next 2 points make it so that Wings further increases the damage of Final Verdict and Divine Storm by 20%. Note that this is a conditional damage increase, but it's not a new buff to track, right? It's just making Wings more strong. And that's sort of one of the things that they're doing, right? Is like anything that makes Final Verdict or Divine Storm deal more damage, and it's like a buff that comes up sometimes and not others, they're paring a lot of that down. But Within Wings is okay. That's allowed. That's an allowed place to buff specific abilities. And that's sort of the same for a lot of other classes as well. And then finally, we have Light Within, the last point, which makes it so that during Wings, Blade of Justice unleashes a wave of holy energy, dealing holy damage to its primary target and damage to all enemies within its path. So that is the change, or the new hero talent there. Not hero talent, rather, Apex talent. I would say probably not one of the coolest ones, but probably not bad. This will be kind of fun, and getting a free Art of War when you Wings be a kind of nice little... although you often do have a lot of stuff that you're doing in your Wings anyways, but especially if you're trying to set up coming into it with all your holy power and stuff, but still, this will probably make the pressing of Wings feel a little bit more fun, so I guess it's okay. I'd probably give this like a B in terms of Apex talent coolness factor. Okay, so we have the Execution Sentence redesign. Let's start there. Now it's a 1-minute CD. You blast the target, dealing holy damage to all enemies nearby. You call down a hammer. After 10 seconds, that primary target takes 10% of the holy damage you dealt to all the targets that were hit by the initial blast. So a big funnel effect here, right? If you press this on a target with 6 training dummies next to it, then you do a bunch of AoE, or a bunch of effects that incidentally AoE, even just like random stuff like a Wake of Ashes, right? You are going to do a bunch of extra damage to that primary target from Execution Sentence. So I think a very cool effect here on a 1-minute CD. So that's definitely something worth noting about it. Pretty long cooldown there. Then we've got, let's see, Judge, Jury, and Executioner. So this is now the capstone talent here after Execution Sentence. And it makes it so that holy power spenders deal increased damage, and after casting Execution Sentence, your next 2 holy power abilities will refund their cost. So they won't be free, but they will refund their cost. So you'll be able to spam a few extra of those. You just got to be careful to not accidentally build be at 5 and then spend and then build and be like, oops, I was at 5 again. Okay, Divine Resonance has been updated. So this used to be the effect that made it so that you would instantly judgment after casting Divine Toll every 5 seconds for 15 seconds. And though it still says that in the alpha right now, in the patch notes, they say now it causes your next 3 judgments to recast, to cast like 2 judgments, basically. So that's what the patch notes say. I assume that's going to be accurate, even though the alpha isn't currently updated as that. Templar Strikes. So this has been updated, and it now says Crusader Strike loses a charge, but it now strikes twice. And the Templar Strike slashes an enemy for radiant damage, and then it gets followed up by Templar Slash, which always crits, and both of those deal radiant damage. So you are going to want to, in theory, actually play Templar Strike and not just have the auto attack replacement of that, whatever Crusading Strikes was, which I guess is gone, right? The Crusading Strikes replacement effect for... So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a new play style, or in many ways, a return to the old play style of Ret from back before the Crusading Strikes days. And I think it's worth noting as well, I wonder if it still only generates the 1 holy power as well. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I would say in most cases, going from 2 charges to 1 charge on an ability, it's actually a pretty bad feeling, because you lose a lot of flexibility in your rotation, right? If an ability has 2 charges, you don't have to press it when it comes off CD, and you still can get the same number of uses over the course of a minute, as long as you don't ever let it hit 2 charges. When an ability only has 1 charge, you do lose that functionality, which might mean that, say, okay, Judgment and Templar Strike, right? Like, these both have they both don't have multiple charges, which means you feel really bad if like both are coming off cooldown at the same time, because one of them now you're going to have to miss some potential cooling down time of. So that is, I think, something that might feel a little bit worse for Ret players, is sort of moving away from these multi-charges of different talents. It is worth noting, let's see, I think there are... Yeah, you can get Blade of Justice to have 2 charges, and you can still get Judgment to have 2 charges. So what might happen is we might move to a rotation if you do talent these things, where even though Templar Strikes is less impactful in your rotation, it's still a higher priority to press it when it comes off cooldown, because you then continue to get the benefit of stuff cooling down. Okay, Boundless Judgment, no longer... So that's the other option here. This one no longer causes Judgment to generate an additional holy power. So I guess it only is going to have... It still says that in-game, but the patch notes say that it's not going to do that anymore. Divine Wrath is getting changed as well. It's now a 2-point talent, and it increases wings by 4 seconds for 2 points, or 2 seconds for 1 point. And if you want to get down to Crusade, you are going to need to invest both of those points and then the point in Empyrean Legacy as well. Radiant Glory, this is a pretty big one. So Radiant Glory now makes wings get replaced with Radiant Glory, which just says Wake of Ashes activates Avenging Wrath for 12 seconds. But you no longer have the chance of proccing wings. Wings now only gets activated by your Wake of Ashes when you do talent Radiant Glory. So that's going to be the, I guess, option for you. There's no more wings procs, right? It's just the wings. Either when you press wings or when you press Wake of Ashes, you get a half-length, half-cooldown wings. So yeah, we'll see which of those ends up being the preferred playstyle there. This is inherently a little bit more powerful, but it does cost the talent point. So, okay, we also have Blades of Light. So this is a new 2-pointer here. That just increases the damage of Templar Strikes, Judgment, and Blade of Justice, so all of your builders, and this is necessary to get to the Execution Sentence branch of the tree. So note that there is a lot of investment you need, right? If you want to get to Crusade, that's going to take you 4 points, right? If you want to get to Radiant Glory, 3 points. If you want to get to Judge, Jury, and Executioner, 4 points. You know, that you have very few options remaining for your points, right? Like, so... you'll have to invest like all of them down here, because presumably you're going to want to put all of them in the Apex talents as well. So there are very expensive bottom of the tree for Ret to get to these high value talents, but there's not a lot of other options, right? The opportunity cost is very low because it's not like there's a fourth branch that you can't afford. You just have enough points to kind of take, the 2 branches, and then you can choose how much you kind of want to invest in the middle, and I assume that's usually what you're going to do here as you decide how to play this. Let me get away from these loud mages doing their cooldowns on these dummies. Goodness, I'm just trapped over here in a little outhouse by the dummies. Okay, up next, we have Empyrean Legacy. So this is the one below Divine Wrath, so over on the Crusade side here. And this has a new effect as well, where it now makes Wings empower your next single target Holy Power ability to automatically Divine Storm. So you basically get 1 free Divine Storm per Wings with 25% increased effectiveness. Crusade, it's now passive as well. It just makes Wings give you 2% haste and then increase that spent during Wings. A pretty similar effect to Old Crusade as well. Holy Flames, so this is another new talent over here. This one makes it so you deal extra holy damage to targets burning from Expurgation, which is still over here, which is what makes Blade of Justice put a dot on things. So pretty nice just damage multiplier there. Art of War is over here, so it's now I guess it's still a choice node with Righteous Cause. But Art of War causes auto attacks to have a 15% chance, down from 20, to reset Blade of Justice cooldown, but crits increase the chance by 15%, was 10%. That's what the patch notes say. In game, it has half of those changes in. It just has the nerf, it doesn't have the buff. So I don't know which of those is going to be accurate. A lot of stuff for Paladin in particular, the patch notes disagree with the alpha version, so not sure what to make of that. I assume the patch notes are more likely to be more accurate than the in-game version, but one of those things where one of them might have been updated after the other, and not sure which. Rush of Light. So that's over here, and this one makes it so that crits from Holy Power generating abilities grant 5% haste for 10 seconds. This one's a bit of a weird one. This is a little bit out of place with the Midnight Overhaul to classes and specs. This is the kind of little small stat buff that they have been taking and changing these from buffs to just flat increases, right? So like a more midnight version of this would just be you have 2% haste, right? Just 2% increased haste, something like that. Or, I don't know. You have 2% haste, your Holy Power generating abilities have 2% increased chance to crit. Those kind of, or deal 2% increased critical damage, right? Like those sort of little bits of stat are more in line with the other midnight changes than this one here. I'm not saying the gameplay of this is bad, but this is going to be one extra little buff that shows up on your buff bar. That's the kind of thing they're trying to delete. So I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't survive the entire alpha cycle here. Final Verdict. This one has had its secondary effect updated, now having a 15% chance to give you a reset on Judgment. And then we have some non-talent changes with Templar's Verdict's damage going up, Divine Storm's damage going up, Blade of Justice's damage actually going down, and then a lot of these talents going away as well. Guided Prayer and Shield of Vengeance going to the class tree, Divine Hammer to the Templar tree, and all of this other stuff. Aegis Protection, Crusading Strikes, Divine Arbiter, Divine Auxiliary, Executioner's Will, Final Reckoning, Inquisitor's Ire, Justicar's Vengeance, Light Celerity, Searing Light, Vanguard's Momentum, all getting pruned out of here. And a lot of that was the things that increase the damage of these effects, and now that damage effect increase is just baseline for these abilities. So that's what's happening to Retribution. Let's move on to Prot Paladin. Developer's notes. We're addressing some pain points Prot has been experiencing at the start of combat, with competing priorities and abilities clashing. Prot Pallies were subject to a significant pressure and tension between defensive abilities, holy power generation, generating and maintaining threat, and an immediate need to place Consecration. We're also aiming to streamline by paring back on the number of layers of short duration or low impact defensives in order to concentrate power into fewer moving parts. Great change. A lot of this problem was exacerbated by Avengers Shield no longer generating holy power, which meant that now 2 of those priorities, generating threat and generating holy power, were no longer accomplishable by one button. So let's see how they're doing this for Prot Paladin, because this is a big set of goals. Let's see how they're doing it. So we have no Apex talent. just yet for Prop Paladin. We do have a bunch of new talents, though, and a bunch of talents being taken away. Barricade of Faith, Bastion of Light, Eye of Tyr, Faith in the Light, Holy Shield, Improved Holy Shield, those are big ones. Inmost Light and Moment of Glory, all going away. Coming in, we have Undying Embers. So this is just going to be a small improvement to Refining Fire, which is the dot that you were applying with Avenger's Shield. And this is going to make it so you are healed for 100% of that damage. This will be a pretty large amount of healing in like 5-target situations, potentially, when you're getting this dot on a lot of targets. So it could be pretty nice there. Although I think this effect has been, I think this was like an Aberrus set bonus or something to get this benefit. And it was a very small amount of HPS. So maybe it won't. Again, those are the kind of things where it's all tuning whether or not that kind of effect actually does a lot of healing and actually does a lot of damage. Searing Sunlight over here is a new talent that makes it so that Wings causes Consecration to deal damage or heal immediately again at 100% effectiveness. So every time you press Wings, basically your Consecration is going to flare up and do a tick. Sweeping Verdict is down here, and this one makes it so that Judgment chains to 2 additional targets. Pretty big deal there on, again, just like small target, multi-target situations, damage and threat, and defenses as well, I guess, come out of that as well. Then we have Empyrean Authority down here. This one makes it so you get an extra charge of Guardian of Ancient Kings. Very nice way to get some extra, some more uses of a very long cooldown, but very high power defensive there. 50% damage reduction for Prop Paladin, a very big deal. Often a very necessary part of surviving certain raid encounters. So yeah, 2 charges, a lot of nice flexibility there for how you're going to use those. Valiant Crusade. This one's kind of a cool one. When you're out of combat, Divine Steed grants Shield of the Righteous for its duration and an additional 2 seconds after it fades. So this is a kind of cool way to let you start combat. As long as you Divine Steed before you pull, you are then going to have a nice long Shield of the Righteous that lasts for your entire steed, which doesn't go away when you get into combat. And then an additional 2 seconds after it fades. So this is a pretty cool effect. They're experimenting with this sort of thing for some of the tanks, and I do think this is pretty cool. It's it is kind of a high skill thing, right? To make sure that you start your combats a certain way. That's something that is, it'd be easy to be running towards a pack and then press your Divine Steed right as you already get into combat, and then you'll lose a lot of value. So I'm not sure that everybody is going to like this sort of thing. There's a similar thing for Vengeance where you when you Infernal Strike out of combat, it makes a Sigil of Misery, or not Misery, Sigil of Flames. But that one gives you 5 extra seconds of grace period after entering combat. And I wonder if something like that would be good for Valiant Crusade as well. I guess the idea is that Divine Seed, you can press it well before getting in combat and still carry it into combat. But, naturally you're going to want to milk this to as late as possible before you start combat, so you get as much free Shield of the Righteous uptime as possible. And it will feel pretty bad if you end up messing that up. So a little bit of a grace period would maybe be nice here for that effect too. Okay, Vision of Sanctity. Another new talent here over on the right side of the tree. Makes it so the Consecration deals extra damage when it strikes a single target. And again, note that you have ways to make Consecration do more damage with Searing Sunlight as well. This talent also, it's really designed to make sure that okay, I put my Consecration down first, and then I avenge your shield after, and I get my benefits that way. So really, Blizzard kind of identifying that you have multiple different priorities in the opener and trying to help you figure out which buttons you're supposed to press in which order. Okay, then we have Solace, which makes it so Consecration heals you for 100% of the damage it deals. Again, extra ticks off of that from Searing Sunlight. Sanctuary has been updated. While in your Consecration and for 4 seconds after you leave it, you get 5% damage reduction. So much smaller damage reduction than the old Mastery used to give you. Mastery is being updated as well. So Mastery now increases your chance to block and your chance to block spells and harmful dots by double that. So big change there, kind of moving Holy Shield into the Mastery, taking the Consecration damage reduction out of the Mastery, and then putting a small, weaker version of it here in Sanctuary. Sanctuary has that nice 4-second quality of life as well after leaving Consecration, and the fact that it's a 5% damage reduction is small enough that you don't feel like a stupid idiot if you get hit and die without consecration up. Obviously, you are a bit of a stupid idiot, but it's 5%. It's a lot less likely that that's going to instantly lead to your death. And if you mess up by 1 global and don't put your consecration down right away, type thing. Okay. Resolute Defender has also been updated. That one now is just going to increase the duration of Ardent Defender by 2 seconds there. Templar has been updated, which it's now replacing Eye of Tyr with Divine Toll, although it looks like that talent isn't lit up here. So let's see, Eye of Tyr. Oh yeah, okay, because Eye of Tyr's gone. So Divine Toll. Yeah, I don't know what they're calling it. Templar in the patch notes. I assume that's there was a button, or there was an effect that increased the power of your Eye of Tyr. So maybe that's what they're talking about. Something down here that now is going to increase the power of your Divine Toll. But yeah, I don't actually see where that is. So either it's called something other than Templar, which is what the patch notes call it, or I'm missing something here. But yeah, Eye of Tyr is going away, so that would explain that. Light's Guidance has been updated. So now that is in the Templar tree. And of course, since Eye of Tyr no longer... Oh, I guess that makes sense. Templar, the hero talent tree, every place where it referenced Divine Toll, or Eye of Tyr, now going to reference Divine Toll. And so here, every time you Divine Toll, you get 20 seconds in which you can now press Hammer of Light afterwards, which previously you'd press Eye of Tyr, and then Eye of Tyr would change into Hammer of Light. So yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense. I'm stupid. I figured it out now. Okay, we also have Refining Fire having been updated. That was the one over here. And this is just the one that gives you the dot, and they just moved where this was on your wings. Or not on your wings, on your Avenger's Shield, rather. Word of Glory. Mana cost increased by 100%. But it now gives you all of the mana back when cast on yourself. Huge quality of life increase. Prot Paladins going out of normal gameplay was a disaster for the Prot Paladin quality of life experience, especially in War Within Season 1, when you'd spam out so many of them with the Lightsmith builds. Yeah, this is great change. Now you have to cast it on yourself still if you want the mana back. So if you're off healing, it's become more expensive. If you were using half of your Word of Glories on yourself and half on your party, you're breaking even. And if you were doing anything more skewed towards healing yourself, you are now going to be spending less mana than before with this change. Huge benefit there. Then a couple of other small updates. Undisputed Ruling is not going to give Holy Power. Consecration and Flame is now 2 points. Sacrosanct Crusade, Light's Deliverance, now both reference and interact with Divine Toll, presumably instead of Eye of Tyr. Many talents have moved around. And, of course, all those talents that I've mentioned at the start of this prot section have been taken away. So net changes here, I think, are good. I worry a little bit about the percent chance of blocking being the way that Mastery works. Because it's like, obviously you can get a pretty high percent chance on this, but... and it's doubled for spells and periodic effects. But it feels like a pretty... it feels like you're a tank that is sort of indexing into just being like a super parry tank, right? Similar effects to those where it's like, okay, if I just low roll a couple of powerful attacks or, heaven forbid, spells in a row, and like a lot of my defenses against magic damage is under the assumption that I'm going to block more than half of them, and then I roll 3 non-blocks in a row, and I could just fall over. So I'd kind of like it if they maybe moved some of this into passive damage reduction, and then had a smaller chance of actually getting you the block that gave you further mitigation. But I think that Paladin is going to suffer a little bit from low rolls, especially in like a raid environment where you maybe have 3 damage instances over 5 seconds, but they're all pretty big. And just over the course of a fight, you might low roll a full sequence of 3 of those, even if you're decently invested into Mastery, and you're just going to fall over and die. That is something I am a little bit worried about with this design of Prot Paladin, just from like a high-end rating perspective. In Mythic Plus, it should be a little bit nicer because you're taking a lot of smaller instances of damage, sometimes even very big damage instances if you're doing high keys, but there's more of them, so you're a little bit less likely to run into like a low roll situation where you just have because you're just getting hit so much, it's going to converge towards actually hitting your block chance much more reliably. But that is one concern I do have with this iteration of Prot Pally for Raid. I'm happy with how much less important it is to always be in your consecration whenever you're getting hit and to instantly drop it whenever you move to a new place, giving you the 4 seconds grace period and just reducing the damage reduction here on Sanctuary compared to Old Mastery, I think is a big, big W. So pretty happy with the initial swing here at Prot. All right, up next is time for Holy. Holy Paladin's updates are focused on removing various inconsequential healing sources and cutting secondary tracking buffs. We're also reducing the amount of mid-range cooldowns they have access to, as we felt there were a few too many in that space, and making sure Aura Mastery is a satisfying and impactful button press instead. Light of Dawn is also getting an update to its targeting, now being a circular radius around the Paladin rather than a frontal cone. Getting the perfect angle for Light of Dawn could sometimes be difficult, and we don't feel like it matched our combat approachability goals. Very interesting change to Light of Dawn. I mean, the cone was a iconic part of that, but changing it into a big circle around you, it's kind of just like a burst heal, blast Holy Nova type thing around you. I guess, it'll still be potentially a very powerful part of the kit, just a very different experience for Holy Paladin players. So let's start off with that Apex talent, which is implemented and actually very cool and strong for Holy. So it's called Beacon of the Savior. While in combat, apply a Beacon of the Savior to the lowest health ally within 30 yards, and that causes your direct healing on others to also heal that ally for 30% of the amount healed. So just you're naturally always going to have this beacon out in combat. On the lowest health ally within 30 yards, it will start, right? When you're in combat, it'll just instantly go on the lowest health ally. It transfers every time it heals a target past maximum health to the lowest health ally within 30 yards. So it will just keep jumping around onto the lowest health ally and then giving you a bunch of healing onto that target. So extremely impactful, life-saving value here on this Beacon of the Savior, where it's going to be healing somebody that needs it, and then when they don't need it anymore, I guess there's maybe when they're going from 70 to 100% health, they don't really need it anymore. But once they're at 100% health and they really don't need it anymore, now it jumps again to the person who needs it the most. Extremely powerful effect for high-end play, where that type of healing is way more powerful than just the HPS would make you think. The next 2 points make it transfer an additional 20% whenever you put 2 points into this. So it'll be 50% of your direct healing on others to your savior target. And then the final point makes it so that every 5 seconds, or whenever it transfers to a new injured target, they get an absorb shield that prevents the next damage, the next 5,220 damage even here on this character, and reduces damage taken by 10% for 15 seconds. So the 10% DR lasts for longer than just that absorb shield will. This is really, really powerful because the people in your raid who need this DR the most, which has an unlimited amount of effective healing that it can do, are the people that are going to get this. So, this seems like by far the strongest set of Apex talents for any of the healers that I've read so far, at least in terms of not necessarily tuning, but just like what this does. This is a really, really potent effect, and it really lines up with the Holy Paladin, spot healing niche. If you got one Holy Paladin in your raid, all of a sudden it's going to feel like that one person who was about to die isn't dying anymore, and this really leans further into that. So, this seems like a huge W for Holy Paladin. Ringing of the Heavens, new talent as well over here. This one makes it so that whenever you Aura Master, you also get a free Divine Toll. Pretty cool. Seraphic Barrier. That's a new talent all the way down here. And this one makes Word of Glory and Light of Dawn give a 10% absorb shield on allies when they're healed by it. So another powerful, again, 10% HPS. Absorb shields, sometimes they can be overhealing, but a nice part about it is that they go overhealing if they expire before they run out. But this means that even if your Light of Dawn would overheal on somebody, it might give them an absorb shield that then actually does do effective healing when it gets chewed through later. So definitely a nice little benefit there. Call of the Righteous, a new talent down here. This one makes Wings have a shorter cooldown, whether you have Wings with Avenging Wrath or Avenging Crusader. And that shorter cooldown comes with a shorter duration as well. So with 2 points in this, Avenging Wrath would be 30 seconds less with 5 seconds less duration. And Avenging Crusader would be 15 seconds less with 3 seconds reduced duration. So 15 seconds less cooldown, 3 seconds reduced duration with that. Interesting effect there, interesting drawback on this. I'm not sure. Of course, Avenging Crusader and Avenging Wrath are just above it and are, choice node against each other. So like Wings by default is a 20-second CD on a 2-minute cooldown. 20-second effect on a 2-minute cooldown. And with investing 2 more talent points, you can make it a 15-second effect, right? So you lose a quarter of its duration, and you also lose a quarter of its cooldown, right? You go from 2 minutes to 90 seconds. So that's net neutral in terms of uptime. With Avenging Crusader, on the other hand, it's a 1-minute CD, and it gives you a 15-second effect. So with 2 points in this, you'd make it a 45-second CD, but you'd be taking 3 seconds off of its effect, so 12 seconds. So I guess there you are slightly getting ahead on uptime, very, very slightly increasing uptime. But mostly this is like uptime neutral and just making these shorter cooldowns that are also shorter effects. The fact that you have to invest 2 low in the tree talent points to get this, though, makes me pretty skeptical because, the trade-off is these points could be, instead of doing something that's kind of neutral, they could be giving you something really powerful and beneficial with one of these other talent points you could have. So, yeah, I'm not sure this one lands for me with the current design. But not a Holy Paladin player. But I do like to make things up regardless. Glistening Radiance is a new talent as well. While at maximum health, targets with Beacon generate an absorb shield equal to 5% of their health every 3 seconds, up to a maximum of 15%. So, another quite nice benefit, especially if there are fights or dungeons where there's a lull in damage and then heavy damage. This will be nice, generating pretty large absorb shield. It is worth noting that this is a smaller shield in-game. The tooltip that you're seeing here shows only 1% every 3 seconds, up to a maximum of 5%, which is a massively nerfed version compared to the development notes that they have here. So I wonder which of those is going to actually make it live. Again, a lot of the Paladin trees have disagreements between the notes and in the alpha version here. I kind of think that the version in-game here is more likely to make it live, because the one in the notes is a lot of HPS if it becomes effective, which this type of effect usually isn't going to be that much effective healing, right? Like the HPS that it actually provides you, it has pretty low life-saving value compared to the HPS of, say, Beacon of the Savior, right? Like those really powerful effects. But it still seemed like a pretty large percent max HP. So I kind of suspect that this is more likely, getting 1% every 3 seconds instead of 5% seems more likely to me to be something that one talent point can give you. Then we have some redesigned talents. We have Liberation being redesigned so that Word of Glory and Light of Dawn have a chance equal to your haste to convert 20% of their healing into damage onto a nearby enemy. So sort of making haste a damage stat for Prot Paladin, or for Holy Paladin rather. Saved by the Light has also been redesigned here. This used to be that debuff that you'd get when it triggered, and they're making it so that it doesn't have that debuff or visual anymore. And instead it says when an ally with Beacon is damaged, they absorb just always, but the size of that absorb is increased by up to 300%, with lower health allies being shielded for more. Very powerful effect here. I wonder if this thing has an ICD or something like that that stops this from triggering off of a lot of instances of damage in a short amount of time. But either way, yeah, it's going to be something where you no longer have a big thing that procs and then it goes on cooldown per target for a long time with a debuff that tracks it and a visual and everything. Okay, Tyr's Deliverance has been redesigned. This one is now a passive, and it makes it so that Wings heals 5 injured allies instantly, and an injured ally every 0.9 seconds within 40 yards. I assume that's just haste reduced from 1 second for a small amount of healing. Allies healed also receive 10% increased healing from your Holy Light, Flash of Light, and Holy Shock spells for 12 seconds. Hand of Divinity has also been updated, so that's the alternative to Tyr's Deliverance. And this one also makes it so that when you activate Wings, you now get your next 2 Holy Lights to be more healing, less mana, and instant. So these just now both proc off of Wings, and it's a choice node against each other. We have another change here to Inflorescence of the Sunwell, which just gives Infusion of Light and additional charge. Veneration also being redesigned a little bit here, where it now makes it so that you no longer get a cooldown reset on Hammer of Wrath crits, on Judgment crits. So it's still Flash of Light and Holy Light crits give you the Hammer of Wrath reset, but no longer on Judgment. But it does now give you an Absorb Shield. So Hammer of Wrath now gives an Absorb Shield on up to 5 injured allies for 150% of the damage done, split evenly among them. So a little bit of that, again, damage, Healy, hybrid stuff over on the left side of the tree here. Breaking Dawn has been redesigned. So this one increases the radius of Light of Dawn by 10 yards if you put 2 points into this, and it's healing by 10%. This is a massive must-take talent, I think, in most situations for Holy Paladin, because by default, Light of Dawn is a 15-yard AoE. With 2 points in here, this goes up to 25-yard AoE, which you might think, oh, that's, like a little bit less than a 50% increase. It's way more than that. Going from a 15-yard radius to a 25-yard radius is a huge increase in area, because as we all know, area scales with the square of the radius. So you get a lot of value out of this radius increase, and I think this is going to feel very mandatory in any builds or situations where you are pressing Light of Dawn as part of your, what you're planning to heal people with, which, there's been very different Holy Paladin builds over the years. If there ends up being a build that deprioritizes Light of Dawn, then maybe you wouldn't need this. But I think in almost all cases, this is going to feel like mandatory quality of life, and not just quality of life, but like throughput to just be able to hit everybody with a Light of Dawn around you, especially hitting your ranged DPS players. I mean, already, even the 25-yard thing, it's going to be hard to hit your ranged players unless you're standing back a little bit from melee and a lot of boss fights. But yeah, 15-yard would be like impossible. Tower of Radiance, no longer a talent. It's now learned baseline. Infusion of Light is now a talent, however, Infusion of Light, which shows up over here. And this one is also now going to increase the effects by a little bit more. So 45% instead of 30% on the size of the increase to healing of Flash of Light and Holy Light. And actually, here on Alpha, it says Flash of Light's healing is increased by 200%. On the notes, it still just says 45%. And Greater Judgment's effect going up by 250%, it says in the notes, and 150% here in game. So again, a slight difference there. Divine Toll's cooldown is going down to 45 seconds baseline. And note that you can reduce it even further with Quickened Invocation if you want to get it down to just 30 seconds. And then Tyrion's Devotion now reduces Lay on Hands cooldown by 50%. This used to give you cooldown reduction on Lay on Hands when you spent Holy Power. Righteous Judgment now replaces Consecrate. So if you want to take Judgment casting Consecrate at your location, or at the target's location, it now takes away your ability to press Consecration as well. Beacon of Virtue getting a slight buff to 9 seconds from 8 on the cooldown there. Or not on the cooldown, but on the duration rather. Light of Dawn does now heal beyond 5 targets, but it's reduced per target beyond 5 instead of being capped at 5. This is sort of in line with a lot of the changes they've been making to healers over the past couple of years. Divine Favor can now trigger from Divine Toll or Holy Armaments. Shining Righteousness now activates with a 20% chance, was after 4 casts, so there's something where you don't need to track it anymore. Awakening now activates with a 5% chance, was after 15 casts. So both of these effects makes it more in line with their philosophy of, hey, we don't want you to have another thing to track. We don't want you to have something that really encourages you to have a weak aura that's, telling you like, hey, 3 casts until your next awakening, right? Like something like that. But it does mean that we're reintroducing a large element of randomness into your healing throughput, which is something that a lot of healers I know are not a fan of that. Having random proc healing changing from pull to pull, especially in a Mythic raid environment, can be a pretty frustrating experience. And then in Mythic Plus as well, sometimes you can feel like the ability to heal a hard boss. Sometimes you get bailed out by an Awakening proc, and sometimes you just fight the Candle King for 3 minutes without one, and then you're dead, right? And that can be a very frustrating experience. So I worry that I understand why they moved off of the number of casts model for Awakening, but I worry that the percent chance model is not a good replacement there. I think something like, okay, making it so, right, with Awakening, right, the way that it functions here is you just have the chance to proc, or to get the awakening going, and then you get it for free when you wings. I don't know. I guess having it be a chance maybe makes sense. I was thinking still of the old version of Awakening where you'd actually get a wings proc off of it, but it is a little bit less impactful than that. So maybe this is okay. I'm not sure. Empyrean Legacy now activates from Judgment crits. Was a 20-second cooldown. Hammer of Wrath now overrides Judgment during wings. That's sort of just a baseline change to Hammer of Wrath for, I think, all 3 Paladin specs. Holy Armaments now overrides Holy Prism. Bunch of talents have been moved. Barrier of Faith, Blessing of Seasons, Boundless Salvation, Merciful Auras, and Relentless Inquisitor are all gone as well. So big changes there to Holy. I am a pretty big fan of what they're doing to it, though. Again, more than anything, I just think Beacon of the Savior, a lot of the Apex talents I've read, I've been like, you know, like, I get that you had to make Apex talents, but whatever. This is, you know, this could have been an email, this could have been a tier set, right? Those sorts of things. Beacon of the Savior, though, is like, yeah, this seems sweet. This seems like something that's going to be really, really powerful and land exactly at the most impactful way that you can have healing, and the most Holy Paladin identity type of healing, of saving, you know, the person that most needs it. Okay, let's take a quick look at what's happening to the hero talents. No news yet on Lightsmith. Herald of the Sun, we do have the new row of talents. Walk into the Light, giving you a chance to gain Blessing of Anshe and get 2 Holy Power after casting Wings. Endless Gleam, giving you increased Dawnlight duration when it heals an ally with full health, or increasing its duration whenever the target is struck by Divine Storm or Templar's Verdict. And then Born in the Sunlight, making Dawnlight's crit chance get increased during Wings. And then we also have Blessing of Anshe now being able to accumulate 2 targets, and now increasing the damage of your healing of your next shock or judgment by 50% was 200%, so a bit of a nerf there. Templar has a new talent, actually has a couple of new talents, more than just the new row. We have Seal of the Templar, which just gives you judgment damage if you're Prot, or Templar's Verdict damage if you're Ret. Divine Hammer, which makes it so the Divine Tool summons Divine Hammers that spin around you for 8 seconds. It's now a passive. It used to be a Ret talent, and it used to do more stuff as well, but now it doesn't. Light's Judicator, which makes Empyrean Hammer deal increased crit damage, and its crits have a chance to give an additional stack of Light's Deliverance. Divine Exaction, which makes Divine Tool cast 2 additional times at 150% effectiveness. And Endless Wrath, which makes it so that Empyrean Hammer has a 100% increased chance to crit. Then we also have some small nerfs coming in here to both Wrathful Descent and Sanctification, which are both getting cut in half. And that's it for Paladin. That's what's happening for Paladin in Midnight. By and large, I think pretty good changes to all 3 specs in terms of the core ideas for what they're doing here. I do think the Templar Strikes being on a 1... like, being such a short cooldown and not being able to store charges is going to feel pretty clunky. Maybe is a price worth paying long-term, though, to make the rotation feel better. The prot changes seem great. Seem like a really great idea, although I do have some reservations about the new Mastery. This is still better than the old Mastery, but maybe they could still make it even better. And then the Holy Paladin side of things, yeah, looks really sweet, what they're doing with Beacon of the Savior. And a lot of stuff that I think, is inspired to rethink Light of Dawn, from being that cone into an AoE around you. That makes a lot of sense. People will definitely be concerned that, it's sort of removing a unique part of the spec's identity, right? That Light of Dawn cone was such an iconic part of the Holy Paladin, lifestyle, but I do think it will probably be... for a new Holy Paladin player, this new Light of Dawn is probably going to be a lot nicer to use than the old cone one. Anyways, that's it for Paladin. Hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.